Believe it or not, there was a time when rush hour in Los Angeles meant 30 minutes almost anywhere in the city, when malls were cultural epicenters rather than dying retail relics, and where creativity exploded simultaneously in a dozen different neighborhoods with zero coordination. Undoubtedly, the 80s in LA marked the precise moment when this sprawling metropolis figured out how to export culture at industrial scale, while somehow maintaining authentic local scenes. Imagine, you had downtown executives riding elevators up new glass towers by day, then driving to clubs where the next wave of music was being born by night. You had suburban kids creating fashion movements in food courts that would influence global runways by year's end. And underneath it all, you had a city that still moved, still breathed, still allowed for chance encounters and genuine surprise. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through that lost world, where every neighborhood told a different story, and nobody quite knew how it would all turn out. Your morning in early 1980s. Los Angeles began behind the wheel, navigating an extensive highway network that defined the city's transportation culture. Driving into downtown meant traversing freeways marked with signage for Culver City, Venice Boulevard, Hollywood, and Santa Ana, with skyscrapers guiding your approach to the urban core. Traffic existed but moved more efficiently than in later decades. Longtime residents could get pretty much from any place in the city to another in 30 minutes. With rush hour confined to predictable weekday morning and afternoon periods. While cars dominated the landscape, Los Angeles was simultaneously planning its return to mass transit. The Southern California Rapid Transit District began engineering an ambitious 18-mile subway project in 1980, with federal funding covering 80% of costs. The Metro Rail project promised construction from 1984 through 1989, with revenue operations starting in 1990. However, the Reagan administration's 1980 election brought federal transit funding cutbacks, forcing Los Angeles to scale back initial proposals. Downtown Los Angeles transformed dramatically during this period, with the city's modern skyline taking shape. For decades, height restrictions had limited buildings to 150 feet, with only City Hall exceeding this at 454 feet. When these restrictions were lifted downtown in 1957, a building boom defined the city's profile. This boom peaked in the 1980s, culminating with the 73-story U.S. Bank Tower in 1989, rising 1,018 feet to become the city's tallest building. During this era, Los Angeles completed 17 of its 30 tallest buildings, including the Aon Center and 2 California Plaza. The financial district emerged as downtown's business heart, created by the Los Angeles Community Redevelopment Agency as an alternative to the declining Spring Street financial district. Yet, even as downtown's skyline grew impressive, the financial district began experiencing slow decline throughout the 1980s due to suburbanization and financial activity concentration on Bunker Hill. The lunch scene reflected Los Angeles's culinary awakening and innovation. Food critic Ruth Reichel captured the era's spirit when she noted Chef Jonathan Waxman's approach at Michael's in Santa Monica. "I can feed my customers anything, so long as it's not the same thing they ate last night." Hollywood's landscape during this blockbuster boom revealed an industry in transition. Walt Disney Productions remained an independent production company until 1984, when it joined the Big Seven studios alongside Fox, Columbia, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Paramount, Universal, and Warner Brothers. The entertainment industry's physical geography remained concentrated, with Paramount as the only major studio still based in Hollywood proper. While the city's urban core was reaching skyward and Hollywood churned out blockbusters, Los Angeles neighborhoods were experiencing their own profound transformations. And for teenagers, the real action was happening far from downtown skyscrapers and studio lots. The morning bell for Los Angeles teenagers in the early 1980s signaled more than just the start of classes. It meant reuniting with friends after another evening apart. Walking onto campus, we'd see classmates sporting the latest fashion trends, from neon windbreakers to members-only jackets. Lockers lined the hallways like metallic soldiers, decorated with stickers from our favorite bands and adorned with tiny mirrors for last-minute appearance checks. During history class, we'd glance at the clock, counting down minutes until lunch when real life could resume. The cafeteria buzzed with energy as different social groups claimed their territory. Athletes near the vending machines, drama kids by the windows, and everyone else scattered throughout the tables. While the school system grappled with educational equity challenges inherited from previous decades, most students focused on more immediate concerns: upcoming dances, basketball games, and who was dating whom. After the final bell, the real adventure began as we poured out of classrooms and headed straight for our after-school kingdom. The mall. The Sherman Oaks Galleria, opening on October 30th, 1980, became our cathedral of cool, featuring Robinsons anchoring the south end and May Company anchoring the north. Pacific Theaters. Pacific 4 on the uppermost level hosted our weekend movie marathons, while the food court served as our unofficial headquarters for social planning. Other malls joined our after-school circuit. The Beverly Center opened in 1982, followed by West Side Pavilion in 1986. Crenshaw Mall arrived in 1988, and we treated the Century City Mall like hallowed ground after it hosted 1984 Olympic events. These weren't just shopping centers. They were entertainment universes complete with arcade games like Aladdin's Castle and Time Out, where we spent countless quarters and forged friendships over high scores. Food courts offered everything from Orange Julius to Chinese fast food, providing perfect backdrops for gossip exchanges and homework help sessions. For the skateboarding crowd, Transition Skate Park on Whittier Boulevard offered an alternative scene. A converted flower shop featuring 3 12-foot wide halfpipes that attracted legendary skaters like Chris Miller. The ultimate cultural phenomenon of our school years was the birth of the Valley Girl. This wasn't just about how we talked. It was about who we were, how we dressed, and what mattered to us. Frank Zappa and his daughter Moon captured our essence in their 1982 hit Valley Girl, mentioning our beloved Galleria by name. Our fashion choices, big hair, bright colors, layered outfits, became a national sensation after that song hit the airwaves. Movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Valley Girl were filmed right at Sherman Oaks Galleria, turning our everyday hangout into Hollywood history. We weren't just witnesses to cultural change, we were its creators, defining trends that kids across America would copy. Our notebooks were filled with song lyrics, friend signatures, and elaborate doodles during those long chemistry lectures. Between classes, hallway conversations centered on who was going to Friday night's game, which bands were playing at local venues, and, most importantly, weekend plans that always seemed to lead us back to the same social epicenters. As Friday afternoons arrived and we headed out to conquer those malls and beaches, little did we know we were creating memories that would define an entire generation's youth experience. But first, we had to survive another weekend of pure teenage freedom. The Sherman Oaks Galleria quickly became ground zero for teenage mall culture in America, opening on October 30th, 1980, at the intersection of Ventura and Sepulveda Boulevards. This 3-level shopping center transcended mere retail space, becoming the definitive social hub for an entire generation. Frank Zappa's satirical 1982 hit Valley Girl, performed with his daughter Moon Unit Zappa, directly referenced the Galleria, cementing its place in pop culture history. As one Reddit user recalled, Sherman Oaks was just like Fast Times. So much fun, and it was packed. Same with West Side Pavilion, though it was considered slightly more upscale than the rest. By the mid-80s, the San Fernando Valley represented a particular white suburbanite culture where malls functioned as the social center of teenage life. The Sherman Oaks Galleria earned credit for inventing modern mall culture as we know it, creating a template replicated across America throughout the decade. While Valley teenagers congregated in climate-controlled malls, a different youth culture thrived along LA's iconic beaches. Venice Beach fostered a vibrant counterculture that would fundamentally shape skateboarding, art, and fashion worldwide. Photographer David Scott documented this community in the 70s and 80s, capturing young people just being ourselves along the Venice boardwalk. This community didn't know what we were doing would change the world and pop culture. Venice had not been touched by corporate greed yet, with apartments lining the boardwalk instead of souvenir stands. The beach was their playground, hosting the transition from the long-haired children of the 70s to the skate rat punks of the 80s. The area known as Dogtown, stretching from Venice Beach to the Santa Monica Pier, became the birthplace of modern skateboarding culture through the legendary Z-Boys. These pioneering skateboarders transferred their aggressive ground-hugging style from surfing to skateboarding, creating a raw cultural movement deeply connected to Los Angeles's concrete urban landscape. The 1980s were defined by two major sporting phenomena: the dominance of the Showtime Lakers and the triumphant 1984 Olympic Games. The Showtime Lakers, anchored by Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, captured 5 NBA championships between 1980 and 1988. Their fast-paced, exciting style made the Lakers the hottest ticket in town, reflecting the city's glamorous energy. The 1984 Olympics, led by Mayor Tom Bradley, welcomed the world with a celebration transcending cultural boundaries. Under Peter Ueberroth's stewardship, the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee introduced innovative financial models leveraging corporate sponsorships, generating profits exceeding $232 million. Beyond athletic achievements, the Olympics transformed Los Angeles through vibrant performances, art exhibitions, food, and cultural events, enhancing the city's global profile. The decade marked a turning point for LA's culinary identity, particularly in embracing ethnic cuisines. As the Los Angeles Times noted, when it comes to eating, the 80s were LA's decade. Angelenos proved exceptionally adventurous eaters, overcoming their fear of raw fish and discovering sushi etiquette. This culinary exploration extended beyond Japanese food to include Thai and regional Chinese cuisines throughout the city. LA's car culture remained central to the city's identity, with the San Fernando Valley maintaining a vibrant drive-in movie theater scene. The Van Nuys Drive-In reopened with 3 screens on June 24, 1983, offering affordable entertainment and social gathering spaces. Perhaps most visually striking was the flourishing lowrider scene within the Mexican-American community, featuring candy paint jobs with glimmering specks of metallics and custom upholstery of magenta velvet. These customized vehicles represented artistic expression and cultural identity, pushing back against mainstream society. As weekend daylight faded into dusk, Los Angeles transformed into something entirely different, where legendary nightlife scenes along the Sunset Strip would create rock history and forge cultural movements that would survive long after the last chord was played. As the sun set over Los Angeles, the city's legendary nightlife emerged, particularly along the famed Sunset Strip. The Whiskey A Go-Go, which first opened in January 1964, remained a vital part of this scene throughout the 1980s. Known as the first real American discotheque, the Whiskey played a crucial role in numerous musical careers, especially for Southern California bands. Just down the street, the Rainbow Bar and Grill solidified its reputation as LA's quintessential rock and roll hangout. While it had hosted rock royalty like Elton John, Alice Cooper, the Rolling Stones, and Led Zeppelin in the 1970s, in the 80s, the Rainbow became a hair metal hangout. It is now frozen in and intrinsically linked to this time period. The Rainbow earned infamy as a den of sin and vice, where rock stars, groupies, and fans intermingled in an atmosphere of hedonistic celebration. These venues along the Sunset Strip formed the epicenter of the hair metal scene, dominating late-decade rock music, launching Motley Crue, Poison, and Guns N' Roses to international stardom. The distinctive aesthetic of teased hair, spandex, and makeup that originated here would influence global pop culture throughout the decade. While hair metal commanded the spotlight on the Sunset Strip, LA's punk and alternative scenes thrived in less glitzy venues. Madame Wong's West, a famous punk rock hangout owned by Esther Wong, known as the godmother of punk, hosted an impressive roster of emerging talent. This club at 2900 Wilshire Boulevard welcomed performances by The Knack, The Police, The Motels, The Go-Go's, Oingo Boingo, Guns N' Roses, X, Black Flag, Fear, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and the Ramones during its heyday, musicians remember the early 80s as a magical creative time in LA, with bands playing alongside the Motels, Great Buildings, and Rubber City Rebels in a vibrant scene. Madame Wong's West remained a vital part of LA's alternative music landscape until closing in early 1987. While rock dominated the Sunset Strip and Hollywood clubs, a revolutionary musical movement was emerging in South and East Los Angeles. Hip-hop arrived in LA in 1980 as a new form of expression for kids from South and East LA, quickly uniting rappers, DJs, breakdancers, and graffiti artists into a cohesive cultural movement. The scene gained crucial media support in 1983 when radio station 1580 KDA, led by music director Greg Mack, began championing local artists. This airplay transformed neighborhood events into large-scale, sold-out house parties as the movement gained momentum. The early LA hip-hop scene focused primarily on party anthems and celebration. By 1985, however, the movement took a darker turn as rap music's focus evolved from party anthems to street poetry. The increasing influence of gangs and related issues culminated in a bloody skirmish during a Run DMC headline show at the Long Beach Arena in 1986. Many saw this as marking the end of hip-hop's first wave in Los Angeles, foreshadowing the emergence of gangster rap that would define West Coast hip-hop in the late 80s and early 90s. As the decade wound down, the scenes that had defined LA's nightlife began experiencing seismic shifts. But nobody could have predicted just how drastically their beloved city was about to change. As the decade progressed, the vibrant communities that had defined early 80s Los Angeles began experiencing significant changes. Venice Beach locals recall the beginning of gentrification that would eventually transform the once bohemian artist colony. The process that would later lead to Venice being dubbed Silicon Beach in the 2000s had its roots in real estate changes of the late 1980s, when corporate interests began acquiring property in previously overlooked neighborhoods. These changes weren't limited to Venice. Throughout Los Angeles, real estate development was altering the urban landscape, with new high-rises and commercial developments replacing older structures. The Sherman Oaks Galleria itself would eventually undergo complete transformation, converting from an indoor mall to an open-air shopping mall and business center in the early 2000s. The final years of the 1980s witnessed significant cultural transitions throughout Los Angeles. The carefree mall culture that had defined the early part of the decade began facing new social realities. The hip-hop scene's evolution from celebration to social commentary reflected broader tensions emerging within the city. Venice Beach's transformation from a raw, edgy surf and skate community to an increasingly commercialized tourist destination mirrored similar changes happening across the city. As one Venice local nostalgically recalled, "Our lives were not perfect, but we all loved each other and we had each other's backs. Venice had not been touched by corporate greed yet." The closing of influential venues like Madame Wong's West in 1987 symbolized the end of certain cultural eras. Emerging tensions foreshadowed the social unrest that would erupt in the early 1990s. Even as certain cultural movements were winding down, seeds were being planted for what would become defining aspects of 1990s Los Angeles, including the early roots of the tech industry and evolving youth culture. Los Angeles in the 1980s had been a city of contrast, where mainstream mall culture existed alongside underground punk scenes, and where the glamour of the Showtime Lakers shared space with emerging hip-hop artists from South LA. The decade transformed Los Angeles from a sprawling collection of neighborhoods into a global cultural trendsetter, whose influence would be felt for generations. From the Valley Girls at Sherman Oaks Galleria to the skateboarders of Dogtown, from the glam metal excess of the Rainbow to the alternative edge of Madame Wong's West, 1980s Los Angeles created cultural movements that would be exported worldwide. As the decade ended, the city stood on the precipice of further transformation, with many trends that would define the 1990s already taking root in its diverse neighborhoods. This era of Los Angeles history remains particularly influential because it represented a moment when youth culture, technology, fashion, music, and film all converged to create something genuinely new. The vibrant, contradictory energy of 1980s Los Angeles continues to inspire nostalgia precisely because it captured a moment when everything seemed possible, and when the city truly reinvented what it meant to be cool. And now, I'd love to see you in the comments. Do you believe that LA can ever get back to this level of vibrancy, or is it doomed forever? I can't wait to hear from you below. And thanks for joining more for another episode.